Hello, this is the game between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. They played this game at the 2010 World Blitz Championship. And why I choose this game? Because Hikaru completely surprised world champion with some new thing in opening. And first try to guess what Black played, and then we will discuss about that move. Okay, so now I will tell you, because something what probably you didn't think at all. So the first move is g5. Okay, let's think now about g5. What is the idea with that move? If you want, take a pause, try to think a little bit why g5 in this moment. Okay, I will tell you now. So we played g5 because we want to hit in the center and to weak white pawn structure there. So that was the idea with that. But now we have a problem with our king. Why? Because we can't castle anymore on the king side. And if we try to castle on the queen side, that would be also scary because we already push our pawns there. And that means that white can easily open the queen side, and he can damage our pawn structure, and then he will attack our king. So it's not safe for us to castle neither of sides. So we need to probably stay for the rest of the game with the king in the center. And then Magnus capture on g5, and now of course we will capture on d4, and the pawn on e5 will fall because we weak his pawn structure in the center. So that was the idea with g5, as I said already. And after that we capture with a knight from c6. Why? Because if we first capture with a knight from d file, then white will exchange on c6, and now we don't have that much active knight on c6. So that is why we should capture with a c knight, and we have knight who is active on e5. And after that, bishop d3. Now we can see, or at least we can recognize here, that Magnus Carlsen understands this position, at least on some level, because he doesn't want to keep that bishop, light square bishop, because he understands that he can trade him for the knight. Why? Because our pawns are on completely on light squares, and that means that naturally the light square bishop can't be that active like dark square bishop. So that is why bishop d3 here, and he offer black, if he wants, he can exchange. But of course we are not interested about that. Hikaru understands that, and he plays some maybe useful move here. Okay, bishop b7, probably he wants to do something with that knight. I will ask you later for that move, but also playable move here is bishop g7, but okay, bishop b7. Okay, after that Magnus castle, and of course he needs to move the king from the center, and then maybe he can bring the other rook in the game so he can attack. This is negative thing about taking the pawns in the center, because then white has open files for his heavy pieces, and he can start with attack on the black king, because the black king must stay in the center. He can't castle neither of sides because it's too risky. Okay, then bishop g7, and now Magnus made first important mistake here, and that is knight from c to e2. Now if you want, take a pause, try to understand what black needs to play here, and that move will give him some advantage in this position. So it's about some strategic move, and I will ask you now which of those bishops are better here, and let's see why. So we already spoke about light square bishop. We have light squares pawns. Everything is on light squares, so practically this bishop can't be active. On the other side, a dark square bishop is holding a lot of good squares, and white should keep him alive. Of course, Magnus didn't want to exchange him, but now there is a chance for black to exchange this wonderful bishop, and after that only black will stay with the dark square bishop, and he will be so important through the rest of the game. So probably you already know what is the move here, how we can exchange, and that is knight g4. Okay, after knight g4, white can't play anymore bishop f4 or something like that, because we can fork that. And of course bishop f2, still it's nothing. And then king h1. Idea with that move is that black wants to move the king from the dark squares, because black will stay only with the dark square bishop. But also I need to tell you that when you don't know what to play, I mean when you don't know, you're not sure what could be your idea in the future, what to play, on which side you should play, then probably the best thing what you can do is to stop your opponent. There is two things what you can do. is to stop your opponent. That is one thing from his idea to continue with that, but in this case we can't stop because black will capture the bishop. And second thing is to play some useful move for you. And I think Magnus played here some useful move. At least he thought in that moment that this is a useful move for him. But we will see that later in the game that wasn't a good move, and he's just wasting the time for unnecessary move here. Okay, now black capture and white capture. Also, I didn't tell you about knight from c to e2, that the final destination of that knight could be on f6 or just to attack the bishop, because the knight was here and then black can't play bishop e5. But now when we exchange on d3 on e3, sorry, and probably that was blunder from Magnus. Strategically speaking, this is now better position for black because of that dark square bishop. Okay, so then queen e7, something what black must play, because white is threatening here knight f5, and that could be so powerful knight, because white can't capture. This is illegal move. So queen e7, important move, probably only move here, and then knight g3. And after that, of course, we want to activate our bishop, and we don't want to allow white to play something with tempo, so bishop e5, and we have really active bishop. And then Magnus plays c3. Idea with that move is probably to play in the future knight f3, but probably he will first move the knight on h5 and then to play knight f3 with idea to attack the bishop. And when black moves the bishop and he will be forced to move the bishop on c7 or d6, it doesn't matter, then white can continue with his idea knight f6. Sooner or later he will play that. But there is a problem, because now when the bishop is on e5, black can continue with some, not develop, but he can start to attack some weakness in white position, and that is the pawn on g5. So that is why rook g8. The pawn is on a dark square, there is no anymore dark square bishop, and this is weak pawn now. One really logical idea from Hikaru, but really effective because the pawn is so vulnerable now. And Magnus played here probably the worst move. I will explain you why. Probably it's not smart idea to open the side where your opponent wants to play. So h4, he's defending that pawn, but now with that move he's opening his king, so it could be dangerous for white king, especially because black didn't castle on the king side, and we have one extra rook who can attack on the king side. And then h6. Idea with that move is to open the king side. Of course, Nakamura knew that there is a great chance for him to have successful attack on the king. We can see how is important to exchange on e3 with dark square bishop, because now white is so weak through the dark squares. So h6, the pawn on g5 is weak. After that, of course, he can't capture on h6 because of the knight, and we can see that now already white's position start to falling apart, and that is why Magnus, like other good players, they always want to play some active position, or they have that desire all the time. They think about it. So he starts with some sacrifice here. I mean, he sacrificed the knight, and after that, of course, black can't play anything else. He must accept that. Okay, and now something what probably everyone knows, that when we have more material, we should just exchange the pieces. We need to simplify position, and exactly that Hikaru played here. He played queen c5. It's so logical move. The king is still in the center, so he can be in dangerous position. Especially now when e file is open, also f file could be vulnerable. So the best thing what black can do is just to exchange the queens. Now if Magnus refused to exchange the queens, the white king also could be really in dangerous position, because we can open and then it could be really dangerous. So practically he's forced to exchange the queens. And then knight h6. Idea with that move is to attack first the rook, but not only that, we have some threat on f7, so we will see. For now, black is better, but also those pawns could be so important in this position. If white can continue to push them, then white will be probably better. So first priority here for black is to stop those pawns, and also he can't let to lose this pawn, because then white will create two pass pawns connected, and the position will be probably worse for black. So that is why next move is so important for Hikaru, and he played rook h8. This is the best move here what black can play. Idea with that is to stop rook f7. So if white now capture the pawn, we can simply capture here on h6, and now the rook is on bad position. I mean, if white capture, we will capture, we have 2 pieces more, so this should be winning position already for black. Okay, then bishop d3. This bishop is hanging, so white needs to move him, and he can't take on f7. Then f6. Again, so important move for black. He wants to destroy this pawn structure, and also the knight can't stay there, so this is so good move. White can't take on f6, neither to pass that pawn because of the knight. Okay, then Magnus activate his rook and take a pause, try to find some good move for black. I mean, we just need to simplify position more, and this should be winning for black. Okay, I will tell you now, that is rook h6. Why we sacrifice our rook for that knight? Idea is that we will capture at least one pawn, maybe even more, on h file, especially that pawn on h6, where is now. Without that pawn, we have 2 pieces for the rook, so it should be okay for black. But first we need to capture that pawn, and yes, that pawn can go on h7, then the bishop will protect him, but we have some reply here, and that is knight e4, and we will cut off that bishop. So we will stay with bishop pair probably in the future for one rook. Not bad at all in endgame. So knight e4, it's kind of tempo move because we are threatening also knight g3 and to fork the king and the rook, so he must move the king if he doesn't want to trade and to simplify more this position. Then king e7, idea is to bring the rook on h file and then to capture the pawn. Rook f5, and of course rook h8, so logical move, rook h5. But now this rook is not on the best place. I mean, he's kind of stuck there, so maybe we can do something in the future about that rook. So king f7, we are threatening to play here king g6, and then we will capture. g4, preventing move, first he is defending the rook. And then bishop f4, okay, still we can capture the pawn. But then bishop b3. So now white is threatening to capture the knight, but there is a good reply for black, and that is knight d2. So we are threatening to capture the bishop, and also we are threatening knight f3 and to capture the rook. So white is forced here to move the bishop on d1 to protect f3 square. And then Hikaru captured the pawn on h6, and now this was a mistake because white can play something and to win this game. There is a winning move here for white, but it's so difficult to find that because they are playing on short time, so of course neither side saw that. The move is g5. Why g5 is so good move? First, if black capture the rook, we can capture, and now the bishop on b7 will fall. So we don't have good square for the king. We must go on the last rank. If we go on g7, then of course immediately rook e7. But now still white can play rook e8, and we are forced to go on 7th rank, and he can capture our bishop on b7. So that is why he can't capture on h5, but there is no good reply here for black. For example, if we capture here, he can capture our rook, so it's not good. If we capture with the bishop, we will stay without bishop. Again, it's not good. So after g5, we can say that white is better, and this should be winning now for Magnus. But neither side saw that, so they exchange on h6, and now the game is practically over because this is exactly what Nakamura wanted, and that is to enter with far away more pieces in endgame, so with practically equal material, but this is totally winning now position for black. And now practically Magnus lost on time because he played bishop c2, but in that moment he also lost on time. But this is also blunder move because black can capture the rook, so they finished the game after bishop h6, we can say, because Magnus didn't complete his move. When he moved the bishop on the board, he lost on time, so practically he didn't play that move. Okay, thank you if you watched this game, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.